How are you?
Hey Boris, how you doing?
Fine, and you?
Great
Right.
background, love
Oh,
it.
that's awesome background.
Thank you. Hi, Cutter Hodierne creates an incredibly tense atmosphere. How did you approach crafting the sense of claustrophobia and psychological spaces through your direction?
Well, good question. I think I'm always trying to just focus on what a particular scene is calling for. Like if it's calling for something that is that needs we need to really create some tension. We're looking, on a like a scene by scene level. What's the way to kind of tell this moment in as simple way as possible. So if we want to make something feel claustrophobic, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, is that what that scene is calling for? Okay, then how is the camera going to help create that moment? But it's really approaching it on a sort of moment by moment basis.
Hi, Josh. You are widely known for your comedic roles, but Charles Hegel is a much darker character. What was the biggest challenge in stepping into his manipulative and sinister role?
Thank you very much for the question. Yeah, as you said, I mostly end up in comedy, so it is so exciting for me when I get to sink my teeth into something like this, a true baddie, and most of the credit for this character really goes to Cutter and our screenwriter John Hibey, who did such a great job creating, like you said, a character who just has this kind of sinister, nefarious, really sociopathy. And yeah, it was just really fun to get to dig into some of that. It's a little hard. Kind of putting on some of those yuckier characteristics, but it's also it's a little fun. I remember during production, I remember we were a couple weeks in, kind of getting towards the middle end of the process, and this wonderful guy we had who was our medic on set. We had been having a conversation. He goes, "Wow, Josh, you're actually like a really nice guy." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I think so." And he goes, I think maybe you were just like into the character a little bit for the first couple weeks because I was like a little bit like, oh, I'm not sure what his vibe is. So I think maybe like it does seep in a little bit and you kind of like get some of that dark stuff. You can't help but have it infect you a little bit.
Peter, you have collected the film a pulp crime thriller that reflects economical frustration. How did you balance the thriller element with the film's social commentary?
I think we wanted to keep there being like a element of humor, a dark humor. And so I always thought of like if the movie was careening towards the edge of a cliff, and the edge of the cliff was sort of thriller and darkness, that comedy was like the strings or the rope, like holding the car back from going over the edge of the cliff. So I think it was about just going really hard and leaning into the thriller, but letting the performances and the instincts of, you know, guys like Josh and Tony who come from a real like comedic background, balancing that with Melanie and Raul who come more from a like traditional dramatic background. Everyone sort of holding each other up in a cool way. But I like to look at it like that of this is the edge. We don't want to go over and have it become just a totally dark movie. We want it to have some kind of gallows humor in there.
John Hegel spends much of the film rested, yet he still feels in control. How did you and Cutter Hodierne work to maintain that tension in your performance?
Yeah, again, I just have to give credit to Cutter and John Hibey for crafting this really, really intricate piece where you never quite know who you're rooting for and who you're rooting against. It starts out you're with Raul's character and Tony's character and Melanie's character, and they've been wronged, and you want them to get their revenge or to be made whole. And so you're following them and you're like, let's get him. And then you see the bad guy, but he's just kind of this meek dude who's hiding out, who's terrified because there's a gun and there are people breaking into his house. And you're like, oh wait, now I'm confused. Like, are they the bad guys? Are they the assailants? And then it turns again, and you've got this guy who has this kind of very devious, very sinister mind starting to toy with people and starting to manipulate them and pit them against each other. And then, of course, it goes to a place where he really, escalates to kind of the full big bad. And those twists and turns, I think, are what make it so satisfying and what definitely made it so fun to play.
Cutter, the film's premise feels rapid from the headline, especially with real-world financial scandals. How much the story was inspired by actual events?
Well, it was inspired by kind of a variety of true stories that we took a little bit of each. There's a little bit of these stories of like platforms that collapsed and um, people getting kind of screwed over. There's stories of kidnappings that happened over sort of crypto thefts and things like that. So we were sort of taking, but then also, in the personalities of the characters, we were taking inspiration from different places too, like a documentary called This Is Not Financial Advice. Had a lot of inspiration for Billy, which is Raul Castillo's character. But we were kind of picking and pulling from all sorts of sources. I know Josh had some cool sort of character inspirations as well. But we were kind of pulling from all over.
And my last question, what can you tell us about your upcoming projects?
Josh, are you under any NDAs?
What can I talk about? Pass, Cutter.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm working on a UFO movie that's set in the Andes in South America.
Cool.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Boris. Take
bye-bye.
care.
Bye-bye.